Hello everyone, and welcome to my Young and the Restless Official 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The tension in Genoa City reached an unbearable peak as Claire finally decided she couldn't carry the weight of her secret any longer. For weeks, she'd been struggling under the pressure of what she knew, the truth that had the power to tear lives apart, especially Kyle's. He had been walking around thinking he had the upper hand, thinking he could outsmart her and manipulate the situation to his benefit, but the universe had other plans. Claire had been hiding something monumental, something that would shatter Kyle's ego and crush his heart in one fell swoop. When she looked him in the eyes that fateful afternoon at Society, her voice trembling yet sharp as steel, she uttered the words that would echo through Kyle's life forever: "You betrayed me again, and now you'll know exactly what that betrayal cost you." The room went silent, the clinking of silverware fading into the background as Kyle's confused expression slowly melted into one of fear and realization. He had no idea what Claire was about to reveal, but his gut told him it wasn't just another argument, it was something earth-shattering. "Claire, what are you talking about?" he asked, his voice a low growl trying to mask the panic creeping up his spine. But Claire's eyes glistened with fury and heartbreak. She wasn't about to let him twist the narrative anymore. "You think you can lie, cheat, and manipulate me while pretending to be the victim?" she shot back. "You think I didn't find out about your meeting with Audra? About how you went behind my back and fed her everything you knew about me?" Kyle's jaw dropped. The color drained from his face. "That's not what happened," he began, but Claire cut him off with an icy glare. Don't lie to me again. You already did enough damage. You wanted to ruin me, Kyle, but in the end, you ruined yourself." Her voice cracked on that last word, her vulnerability slipping through despite her efforts to remain strong. The pain in her tone wasn't just about betrayal, it was about love, trust, and the collapse of something that could have been beautiful. For a long moment, Kyle couldn't find his voice. He just stood there, staring at her, replaying every choice he'd made, every lie he'd told, every secret he'd kept. "Claire, I didn't want to hurt you," he whispered, but she laughed bitterly, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Then why did you? Why did you use me as a pawn in your little war against your mother? Against Summer? Against yourself?" Her words cut deep, slicing through the thin layer of denial he'd been hiding behind. He opened his mouth to respond, but before he could, Claire took a deep breath and dropped the bombshell. "You think you know everything, Kyle," she said, her voice trembling now, "but you don't even know the biggest truth of all. You don't even know what I've been carrying, literally." Kyle blinked, confusion flashing across his face. "What are you talking about?" he asked softly. Claire's hand drifted to her stomach, and when she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. "I'm pregnant, Kyle. I was carrying your baby." The words hit him like a freight train. Kyle stumbled backward, his hand reaching out for the edge of the table to steady himself. What did you just say?" he asked, his throat tightening. Claire's tears flowed freely now, but her anger still burned brightly behind them. "You heard me," she said, shaking her head. "I was pregnant, with your child. And before you even ask, yes, it was yours. But you'll never meet that baby because I lost it the night you betrayed me." Kyle's knees buckled. His breath came in short, sharp gasps as the reality of her words sank in. "No," he muttered. "No, Claire, that's not, how could," but she didn't let him finish. "You broke me, Kyle. You broke me in every way a person can be broken. I trusted you. I believed you when you said you loved me, when you said we were in this together. But while I was trying to protect us, you were busy protecting your own pride." The words hung heavy in the air, suffocating both of them. Kyle's eyes filled with tears, and for the first time in a long while, he didn't try to hide them. He felt them fall, hot and unforgiving, as the enormity of what he'd done consumed him. "Claire. I didn't know," he said, his voice breaking. "If I had known, I would've." She cut him off again, this time with a harsh, almost hysterical laugh. "If you had known, what? You would have stopped lying?" you would have suddenly grown a conscience? No, Kyle. You would have done what you always do, you would have tried to control the situation, to make yourself look like the hero. But there are no heroes in this story. Not you. Not me. Just pain. Kyle reached for her, desperate to make her stop crying, desperate to find some kind of forgiveness, but she flinched away. Don't touch me, she snapped. You don't get to comfort me after everything you've done. You don't get to play the grieving father when you never wanted to be one in the first place. His head dropped, shoulders shaking as the tears came harder. I didn't mean for any of this to happen, he whispered. I thought I was protecting myself, my family. Claire's eyes darkened. Your family? Or your ego? She asked coldly. Because from where I'm standing, all you protected is your ability to destroy everyone who ever loved you. You did it with Summer. You did it with me. And now you've done it to a baby that never even got the chance to exist. The words ripped through Kyle's chest like shards of glass. He wanted to scream, to punch something, to go back in time and undo every stupid, selfish decision that had led them to this moment. But it was too late. The damage was done. He sank into a chair, his head in his hands, sobbing uncontrollably. I'm sorry, he whispered over and over. I'm so sorry. But Claire stood there, unmoved. Her tears had dried, leaving only a cold emptiness in their wake. Sorry doesn't bring my baby back, she said flatly. Sorry doesn't erase the nights I cried alone, terrified, while you were out sleeping with someone else. Sorry doesn't undo the moment I realized you'd betrayed me again, even after swearing you wouldn't. Her voice softened slightly as she continued, almost as if speaking to herself. I loved you, Kyle. God help me, I really did. I thought we were going to start fresh, that we could build something real out of all the chaos. But you made me realize something I should have known from the start, you can't build anything on lies. It always collapses. Kyle looked up, his face pale and streaked with tears. Claire, please, he begged. Tell me there's something I can do, anything. I'll fix it. I'll fix everything. But Claire only shook her head. No, Kyle. Some things can't be fixed. Some things you just have to live with. The finality in her tone was like a dagger. Kyle knew he'd lost her for good. She turned to leave, but paused at the door, glancing back one last time. You know what hurts the most? She asked quietly. It's not losing the baby. It's knowing that even if that child had lived, they would have had a father who didn't know how to love without destroying everything he touches. And with that, she walked out, leaving Kyle alone with his guilt. The silence that followed was deafening. He looked around the empty restaurant, seeing the ghosts of their laughter, the echoes of their plans for a future that no longer existed. The weight of his mistakes pressed down on him until he could barely breathe. He whispered her name, hoping somehow she'd hear him, hoping somehow she'd turn back. But she didn't. Hours later, Kyle sat on the floor of his penthouse, surrounded by remnants of their relationship, a photo, a coffee mug, a single earring she'd left behind. He held the photo in his hands, tracing her smile with his thumb, and the tears came again. You betrayed me again, her voice echoed in his mind, over and over like a curse. He knew now that he'd never escape it. He'd carry that guilt for the rest of his life. Meanwhile, Claire stood alone in Chancellor Park, staring at the fountain as the wind whipped through her hair. She felt empty but strangely free. She had told the truth, finally, and though it hurt more than she could bear, she knew she'd taken back her power. For too long, Kyle had dictated the narrative, twisting her emotions, playing on her insecurities. But not anymore. This time, she walked away on her own terms. Still, as she placed a trembling hand over her stomach, a wave of sorrow washed over her. The baby she'd lost, the love she'd given, the betrayal she'd endured, it was all part of a story that would haunt her forever. But even through the pain, she found a spark of determination. She would rise from this. She would rebuild. And one day, when Kyle saw her again, he would realize that the woman he'd destroyed had become stronger than he ever imagined. Back at his apartment, Kyle whispered into the silence, "I lost everything." His reflection in the dark window looked like a stranger, a broken man haunted by his own lies. And as the night deepened over Genoa City, both Kyle and Claire knew that their story wasn't over. But whatever came next would be written in the ashes of everything they once were. The truth had been told. The secret was out. And nothing would ever be the same again. Hours after Claire walked out of society, the fallout from her confession was still echoing in Kyle's mind like a nightmare he couldn't wake up from. He sat in his penthouse, the lights dim, the city's glittering skyline mocking him from beyond the glass. His phone buzzed repeatedly, calls from Jack, messages from Summer, even a few from Audra, but he didn't answer any of them. He couldn't. Every time he closed his eyes, all he saw was Claire's face, pale and trembling, her voice breaking as she said the words that had destroyed him, "I was pregnant, with your child." He pressed the heels of his hands into his eyes, trying to push away the image, but it only grew clearer. Her tears, her fury, her heartbreak, they were carved into his memory like a wound that would never heal. "You betrayed me again," she'd screamed, and he knew she was right. For all his justifications, all his attempts to rationalize his decisions, it came down to one ugly truth: he had betrayed her. Again. Jack's voice finally cut through the silence when the older abbot used his key to let himself in. "Kyle," he called, his tone tense and worried. When he saw his son sitting on the floor amidst broken glass and half-empty bottles, his expression shifted from confusion to alarm. "What the hell happened here?" Kyle didn't even look up. "She told me the truth," he muttered. Jack frowned, stepping carefully over the mess. "Claire?" Kyle nodded slowly, his voice hoarse. "She was pregnant, Dad. With my baby. And I didn't even know." Jack froze, his breath catching in his throat. "What did you just say?" Kyle looked up then, his eyes red and swollen. "She lost the baby because of me." The words cracked something inside him as soon as he said them out loud. Jack felt his stomach drop. He sank into the nearest chair, his mind spinning. "Son," he began, but Kyle cut him off, slamming his fist on the table. Don't tell me it's not my fault. Don't try to make me feel better. It is my fault. Every bit of it." Jack hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "You can't keep torturing yourself like this, Kyle. You didn't know." Kyle's laughter interrupted him, harsh, broken laughter that bordered on a sob. "Didn't know? No, I didn't know she was pregnant. But I knew I was hurting her. I knew I was lying. I knew I was playing games while she was giving me everything. And I did it anyway." He stood up, pacing back and forth like a caged animal. "You told me once that my choices would catch up to me. Well, guess what, Dad? They did. And this time, they took something innocent down with them." Jack's heart ached seeing his son in this state. He'd seen Kyle make mistakes before, plenty of them, but this was different. This wasn't arrogance or stubbornness. This was raw, devastating guilt. "Kyle," he said softly, "you need to talk to someone. Maybe Claire, maybe a therapist." "Claire's gone," Kyle said, his voice hollow. "She made it clear she never wants to see me again." He dragged a hand through his hair, his eyes unfocused. "She said I would have tried to control everything if I'd known. And she's right. I would have. Because that's what I do, I take over, I manipulate, I fix things until they're completely destroyed." Jack wanted to argue, to tell him he was being too hard on himself, but for once, he couldn't find the words. Kyle wasn't wrong. He'd inherited some of Jack's worst traits and amplified them: his pride, his need to be right, his inability to let go. Now, that same need had cost him the one thing he didn't even realize he wanted: a family with Claire. Meanwhile, across town, Claire was in a dark room of her own, a small suite at the Grand Phoenix that she had checked into after leaving society. She hadn't gone home, hadn't called anyone. Her phone had been vibrating nonstop with missed calls from Victoria and even a few from Nikki, but she couldn't bear to talk to anyone yet. She sat by the window, knees pulled up to her chest, watching the rain streak down the glass. She kept replaying everything in her head, Kyle's face when she told him, the shock, the regret, the devastation. For a moment, she had almost felt sorry for him. But then she'd remembered the loneliness, the fear, the heartbreak of losing her baby while he was out plotting against her. The pain came flooding back, raw and unforgiving. Still, beneath all the anger, a tiny part of her missed him. Not the manipulative, selfish Kyle who had betrayed her, but the man he'd been in the quiet moments, the one who'd made her laugh when she was too sad to smile, who'd held her after nightmares, who'd whispered that she was the best thing that ever happened to him. But she couldn't let herself dwell on that version of him anymore. That man had died the moment he chose deceit over love. The next morning, Genoa City was buzzing with whispers. News traveled fast in this town, and somehow, the story had already begun to leak. By the time Kyle walked into Jabot headquarters later that day, heads were turning. He could feel the weight of their stares, the judgment, the pity, the curiosity. He barely made it to his office before Summer stormed in, her eyes blazing. "Is it true?" she demanded, slamming the door behind her. Kyle didn't even bother pretending he didn't know what she meant. "Yes," he said quietly. Summer's jaw dropped. "You got Claire Newman pregnant?" He winced. "It wasn't supposed to happen." "Oh, for God's sake, Kyle," she snapped. "You think saying that makes it better? Do you realize what you've done? You've just blown up your life. Again." He turned toward her, his patience already paper-thin. "You don't think I know that?" Summer shook her head, her voice trembling with anger and disbelief. "I thought we were finally getting to a good place, Kyle. I thought we could co-parent, be civil, maybe even be friends again. But you just can't stop making chaos, can you? You can't stop hurting people." Her words cut deep, but Kyle didn't argue. He knew she was right. "Summer," he said, his voice breaking, "I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I loved her. I really did." Summer crossed her arms, her expression hardening. "You loved her? You destroyed her. I saw her earlier, she looked like a ghost. Whatever you said to her, whatever you did, it broke her. And now everyone in this town is going to know what you did." He closed his eyes, the shame washing over him. "She lost the baby," he whispered. The fury drained from Summer's face, replaced by shock. "Oh my God," she murmured. "Kyle, He shook his head. Don't pity me. I don't deserve it." Summer exhaled shakily. For all their history, for all the resentment that lingered between them, she couldn't help but feel a flicker of compassion. "You need help," she said softly. "Before this destroys you completely." But Kyle just laughed, that same hollow, haunted laugh that sent chills down her spine. "It already has." Across town, at Newman Enterprises, Victoria was in a state of turmoil. She had finally gotten Claire on the phone, and when her daughter's trembling voice confessed everything, Victoria's heart shattered. "Oh, sweetheart," she said, tears filling her eyes. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I couldn't," Claire whispered. "I didn't want anyone to know. It was supposed to be mine and Kyle's secret, but then he betrayed me, and everything fell apart." Victoria clenched her jaw, fury rising in her chest. "He'll pay for this," she said coldly. "No one hurts my daughter and gets away with it." "Don't," Claire said quickly. "Please, Mom. I don't want any more revenge. I just want peace." But Victoria couldn't let it go. She'd already lost too much, and seeing her daughter suffer like this reignited every protective instinct she had. Within hours, she was at the Abbott mansion, face to face with Jack. "Your son destroyed my daughter," she hissed. Jack stiffened. "Victoria, I know you're upset, but this isn't." "Upset?" she interrupted. "My daughter lost a baby, Jack. Do you have any idea what that does to a woman? To know she was carrying a life, his life, and then have it ripped away because of betrayal?" Jack's expression softened with sorrow. "Believe me, I do. Kyle is paying for what he's done, more than you know. But Victoria wasn't in the mood for sympathy. Make sure he keeps paying, she warned. Because if he doesn't, I will. The storm of emotions that followed spread through Genoa City like wildfire. Everyone had an opinion. Phyllis whispered it to Daniel, Nikki vented to Victor, and even Audra found herself caught in the crossfire. She had played a part in Kyle's deception.